Think about this for a moment. The idea that salvation is a free gift, something you receive just by having faith in Jesus Christ, that was an absolutely revolutionary concept. It literally changed the world. This, of course, was the heart of the Protestant Reformation, brought to light by the incredible figure of Martin Luther. His rediscovery of justification by faith was like a massive earthquake in Christian history. It tore back a thick curtain of human tradition to reveal a stunningly simple and powerful truth.
But let's fast forward about 300 years. A fascinating and, frankly, challenging question started to surface. Was the Reformation actually finished? Had the full, undiluted power of the gospel really been unleashed? It seemed that many of the great Protestant movements had sort of stalled out. They settled into their own comfortable traditions and formal doctrines. The revolutionary fire that Luther had lit seemed to be flickering, maybe even dying down. It became clear that a new, deeper insight was needed to pick up the torch and finish the work he so powerfully began.
So in this study, we're going to unpack 6 key advancements that came out of the 1888 message, presented by men named A.T. Jones and E.J. Waggoner, ideas that were meant to complete the Reformation. We'll look at a shift in focus from a courtroom to a sanctuary, the crucial difference between forgiveness and the blotting out of sin, and the move from understanding Christ for us to grasping Christ in us, and we'll see how this all points toward vindicating God's character and preparing a people for the end of time. So this is our roadmap. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into our first point. This is a fundamental shift in perspective. It's like changing the entire scene of the play. The 1888 message moved the whole conversation from a legal framework, a courtroom, to a living, breathing, transformational one, the sanctuary of the human heart.
And the contrast here is really what's so fascinating. Luther's message was primarily forensic, and that's a legal word. It tackled the question from a judge's bench. How can a guilty sinner possibly be declared righteous before a holy God? And the answer he uncovered was a change in legal status. But the 1888 message, it shifted the whole focus. It looked at Christ's work in the heavenly sanctuary and said, wait a minute, this is more organic. The main point isn't just a legal declaration, but a real, living spiritual transformation happening inside the believer.
So let's break that down. Think of forensic justification like a legal pardon. God, the supreme judge, looks at a sinner who believes, credits them with Christ's perfect record, and declares them not guilty. In an instant, their legal standing for the entire universe is changed. This was the incredible, life-changing truth Luther brought back. But here's the key. A pardon changes your legal record, but it doesn't necessarily change the character or the desires that got you into trouble in the first place.
And right here is where the 1888 message takes that crucial next step. The logic was powerful and simple. If Christ is cleansing the sanctuary in heaven, then it only makes sense that the sanctuary of the human heart must also be undergoing a cleansing. The focus moves from God simply counting us as righteous to God actually truly making us righteous from the inside out. It's the profound difference between a criminal getting a pardon and being completely cured of the desire to ever commit a crime again.
All right, let's move to our second point and see how this all builds. This shift from the legal to the organic, from the courtroom to the sanctuary, it naturally leads to a much deeper understanding of the atonement itself. It goes way beyond the initial wonderful act of forgiveness to something far more final and complete.
Now, the Reformation rightly hammered home that first, absolutely essential step, forgiveness. We confess, God forgives, the guilt is gone. And that's a daily, moment-by-moment reality for every Christian. But the 1888 message brought into sharp focus a second, final step, the blotting out. Now, think of it like this. Forgiveness is like erasing a debt from a ledger. Blotting out is like shredding the ledger itself. It's not just about removing the guilt. It's about the total eradication of sin's presence from our character and its very record from heaven. It is the ultimate purification.
So here's the crucial link, the mirror principle. What's happening up in heaven has a direct, one-to-one impact down here on earth. The 1888 message taught that, as the record of sin is being cleansed in the heavenly sanctuary, the power of sin must be cleansed in the believer's life. As Christ works up there, he empowers us down here. The two are perfectly synchronized. And this implies a kind of deep partnership with God, a level of cooperation and surrender that the earlier reformers just hadn't fully explored. Which brings us right to our third point. If this kind of total cleansing is even possible, if we can be not just pardoned but actually cured, then you have to ask, where does that incredible power come from? Well, the answer is found in understanding the fullness of Christ's relationship to every single believer.
Luther's battle cry was Christ for us.
And he was 100% right. This is the truth of substitution. Christ lived a perfect life for us and died a sinner's death for us. We get the credit for his perfect life. It is the absolute foundation of the gospel. But Jones and Waggoner added the vital, completing piece of the puzzle: Christ in us. Now, this isn't just about substitution anymore. It's about union. It's the reality of Christ through his Spirit literally living inside of us, giving us his power to live his life.
You see, this completely changes how we view righteousness. It's not just a clean robe thrown over our filthy garments to make us look presentable to God, though that is where it begins. It becomes a living, divine power that actually moves into the soul and renovates it from the inside out. The 1888 message argued that since Jesus lived a perfect life in human flesh by constantly relying on his Father, he can now live that exact same life today in anyone who fully surrenders to him. He doesn't just give us advice on how to fight sin. He comes inside and wins the battle for us, in us.
Now let's move to our fourth section, because this message has implications that go far, far beyond just my salvation or your salvation. We have to zoom out now to address the central conflict in the entire universe, what is often called the Great Controversy. And what's so powerful about this is the shift in the central question being asked. For Luther and the Reformers, the burning question was deeply personal, very human-centric. How can I, a sinner, be saved? And that is arguably the most important question any person can ever ask. But the 1888 message, framed against this cosmic backdrop of the war between Christ and Satan, asked an even larger, God-centric question. How can God's character and his government finally be vindicated before the entire universe?
So, the idea here is that our salvation is actually Exhibit A in a cosmic trial. See, Satan's core accusation against God has always been that his law is unfair and that it's impossible for created beings to keep it. The ultimate answer to that accusation isn't just Jesus' perfect life 2,000 years ago. It's a final generation of people who, by completely relying on Christ's power working in them, demonstrate his character to all of creation. Their lives become the living, irrefutable proof that God's way works, that his grace is powerful enough to fully restore humanity. This finally and forever silences Satan's lies and proves that God is just.
So now, let's connect all this incredible theology to its ultimate mission. The 1888 message wasn't just a set of doctrines for personal study. No, it was understood as the very message needed to prepare God's people to give the final warning to the world, and in doing so, truly finish the work the Reformation started.
This message was seen as the very heart and soul of God's final message to the world. And you have to ask why. Well, because it's this deep, powerful understanding of faith that makes it possible for a group of people to stand firm during Earth's final crisis, a time when they must rely on Christ's righteousness completely, with nothing of their own. This is the message that's designed to produce the final harvest of believers. The goal isn't just to save a few individuals here and there, but to prepare a unified, corporate body of believers who can stand together and meet a holy God when he returns.
And this brings us to our final crucial point. A calling this high to demonstrate God's perfect character and give a final warning to a dying world is clearly, absolutely impossible in our own human strength. It requires a divine empowerment far beyond what the church has ever experienced before.
The Bible gives us this really helpful picture, this agricultural metaphor. The early rain fell at Pentecost to get the gospel seed to sprout and to launch the Christian church. But just like crops need a final, heavy downpour to ripen them for harvest, God's people need a final outpouring of the Holy Spirit, the latter rain. And this isn't just more of the same power. It's a special, concentrated, final impartation of the Spirit to ripen the character of believers and empower the church for its final global mission. But there is a condition, and it's a big one. Jones and Waggoner taught that this final outpouring of God's Spirit can't be given to people who are still clinging to known sin or trusting in their own efforts. It requires a total surrender, a complete letting go of the controls. It's only when we are fully emptied of ourselves that Christ can fully fill us with his Spirit. It's just like the ancient sanctuary. God's glorious presence only filled it after every single part was completely finished and cleansed exactly according to his instructions.
And this quote from Ellen White really just captures the ultimate purpose perfectly. She said, "The message of the righteousness of Christ is to sound from one end of the earth to the other, to prepare the way of the Lord. This is the glory of God which closes the work of the third angel. In other words, this message, God's character of love, fully displayed in his people, is the very thing that will ultimately light up the entire world with his glory right before the end.
So if we were to boil down the vast difference between the beginning of the Reformation and its intended completion, we could use this one simple analogy. Luther recovered the glorious truth that a condemned prisoner can be legally pardoned by the king. The 1888 message revealed that this same pardoned prisoner could also be fully cured of the very disease that made him a criminal in the first place and be completely restored to perfect spiritual health.
Now, this overview has really only laid the foundation. The practical, day-to-day power of this message really hinges on a correct understanding of Christ's humanity. How exactly could he live a sinless life in our fallen flesh? And more importantly, what does that mean for you and for me today? We want to invite you to continue this exciting journey with us in Part 2, where we'll explore Jones and Waggoner's view of Christ's human nature and how it becomes the absolute key to our victory over sin.